I think the biggest one I see in the sports tech world, I very rarely invest in sports tech companies because the big problem in sports tech founders is they either go after the upper end of the market and they've got a product for pro teams and they've got great CAC to LTV, they've got a cool product, and they've got an $80,000 LTV, 20 grand a year and churn after 4 years or whatever. But the TAM is like $2 million. And they're like, well, when we expand to college, it'll go to 5. Like, no one cares. It's not a venture scale business. Like, there's like 30 teams that do what you do, and you've got 3 of them already. And like, even if you took the universe of all of them, it's just not a venture business. Like, you don't understand. You're raising this thing at like a $5 or $10 million valuation, but your business is never going to be worth more than 20.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today we're thrilled to have Jason Syversen on the mic. He is the founder and CEO of SportsVisio, a former DARPA program manager, repeat entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist, who's now on a mission to democratize sports analytics with AI. At my basketball league, that's how I found out about him. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So would love to get your background. What's your origin story?
Yeah, so I was born in the New York suburbs. Some guy in a pickup truck tried to abduct a girl on our street and circled the neighborhood looking for her, which I thought was pretty exciting because I got to go to the police station, meet the detectives. My parents did not share my enthusiasm over the experience and decided to relocate our family to Maine. Bought a house up on the ocean. My dad was an engineer working for the paper mills. And then the paper mills started shutting down and he lost his job. And we ended up being very poor for for a long period of time after that. Bounced around, rented. We were actually on food stamps, welfare. We were homeless one summer, lived in a pop-up camper in someone's backyard. I still have like toes that are like bent in because I wore shoes that were too small and fun stuff like that. I got a free ride for college. Went to University of Maine for computer engineering and then worked at Lockheed Martin's electronic warfare division in New Hampshire, about an hour north of Boston. Did a leadership program, rotations every 6 months. Ended up going to grad school at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in electrical engineering, focused on cryptography and security. And, was very fortunate to be in middle class. I was super excited about having like food in the fridge and a car that worked and all those fun things, and started getting into hacking pretty much first week on the job. I couldn't get some software I needed to do my job, and the guy wasn't around to install it for a week. And I was like, I'm allowed to install the software? Like, yeah, but Bob is away. I'm like, but it's okay for me to install it. Like, yeah, but you can't because, he's not here. I'm like, well, let's see about that. So I started poking around and figured out how to bypass the protections and install the software. And that led to a new hobby that led to playing pranks on coworkers and taking over the corporate network with permission, and HR visiting my desk occasionally, give me a lecture. I ended up starting a cyber warfare group inside the company with an older guy. Really cool projects came out of that. My favorite was the James Bond Ocean's 11 speed thing where we hacked a Wi-Fi camera surveillance network, intercepted the video, updated the timestamp, and injected the recorded video back in the target. I got to demo that at San Clemente Island off the coast of San Diego for Special Forces guys, which led to SEAL Team 6 DevGru recruiting me to join their team in Virginia Beach. Turned that down, actually, but a couple of years later, I was recruited to go to DARPA, which is this building over here. I ran a $100 million portfolio of classified programs for the Defense Department, transitioned those to Air Force, Army, Navy, CIA, NSA, and another classified DoD element. Left, commuted from New Hampshire every week for the 2 years I was there. It's a 2-year government appointment. And then I started my own company, Sage Technologies, which was a cyber warfare R&D company. Started in 2009, did $1 million in revenue in 2010, $2 million the year after that, kind of kept growing. Ended up selling to a private equity-backed firm in 2016. My wife and I had an 8-digit exit from that. Took enough to live on and donated the rest to a charitable foundation. So I guess I'll stop there for the origin stories. That moves into the
It's amazing.
More current times.
What an amazing journey. And I also grew up poor on welfare, the whole sad story. So I can totally relate to that. So thanks for sharing that. Not everybody tells everybody that.
I never used to share that. Yeah, I ran for Senate in State Senate in New Hampshire in 2020. And that was really the first time I started sharing that. And I remember getting choked up the first couple of times I did it.
Yeah.
Realizing like, oh, there's some stuff here I haven't really unpacked. And
I haven't really, I've been kind of running away from that.
I just kind of am more comfortable sharing it because after you start talking about those things, they kind of lose the power that they had. But it was a cool way to connect because going door to door, you walk to some really nice houses. You got to walk up a long driveway to past the BMW or Mercedes. And then you're in like an apartment complex with some rundown places and parents yelling at their kids.
Yeah, I was the poorest kid in my neighborhood. I remember I had the kind of scarlet letter, and It was tough. It was tough to be from that background and deal with that, and I think it makes us who we are today
Totally.
in hindsight.
Josh Wolf from Lux Capital has a quote: chips on shoulders produce chips in pockets," which I think is pretty funny. There's definitely some truth to like
That is
that
definitely,
that drive to like not be there anymore and prove you have something, and kind of pushes you
yeah.
a lot harder than someone with a silver spoon.
Well, when you come from nothing, you're not afraid of anything, you just like nothing scares me,
Yeah, exactly.
Just I've seen the bottom.
Right.
I can only go up from here. I love that. Wow, there's so much to unpack there. Maybe some lessons from bootstrapping Siege from your living room. Kind of, what did that story? How did that all unfold? And then we'll get to SportsVisio, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was leaving DARPA after commuting from New Hampshire to DC every week for 2 years. So couldn't sell my house. My wife and I had our fourth child during this time. And I remember waking up and they were all young. So we would literally wake up on a Monday morning at like 4:30, pack the kids all in the minivan. She'd drive me to the airport, drop me off, turn around, drive back, unpack all the kids, put them to bed. Luckily, she was homeschooling, so I didn't have to be late for school. But like we didn't have a garage. So like sometimes it just snowed and I'm out there like shoveling the car off. I would pack all the kids. So anyway, we're done with that. And we're like, all right, now what are we going to do? We're kind of stuck in New Hampshire. We couldn't sell the house during the crash in 2007 and 2009. So I was like, well, I can go back to the big company. Really want to do that. I can drive to Boston. That doesn't sound fun. I can start a division for somebody else, in which case if it takes off, I might make a couple $100,000. And if it fails, I get fired. Or I can start my own company, which if it takes off, I make millions. And if it fails, I might lose 20, 30, 50 grand, whatever. So thought about it. It's like, that seems like the most logical choice, but really talked to my wife too. We're both Christians, and I was like, hey, if we're going to do this, like I could just move somewhere else and get a job. Like if we're going to do this, a lot of stress and risk we're taking for what? Why are we doing this? We're not really money motivated. And she's like, well, let's use this for impact. How can we make this a thing that we kind of make a difference in the world? And I was like, I love that, because I'm an engineer nerd guy and I don't really feel like I've added a lot of value in the world other than making like electronic warfare systems slightly better and maybe going after some enemy systems via cyber. So yes, we decided from the beginning, the plan was to kind of donate the majority of what we made to charity, and we were able to do that. So we had a low 8-figure exit and took enough to live on it and put all the rest in a charitable foundation we set up. And she, over that time, was running a group fighting human trafficking, started a different group fighting sexual exploitation. We were foster parents. We've adopted our twin boys, so we use a charity to back similar causes. So I'm on the board of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. I've served on the board of a bunch of other charities. And we back Hope International, which is third world economic development. They do microloans, community savings programs. 500K is a missions group in India. And then some stuff with like more local charities and orphan care and things like that.
That's great. Yeah, I haven't put together my charitable cause yet, but it'll definitely be something about my background, son of a drug addict, things like that, and try to put something together. I don't know what it is yet, but yeah, I can't imagine I'm just sitting like Scrooge McDuck in it, in my 60s
exactly,
or
right.
70s,
I mean, sadly, a lot of people do that, but especially with your background, like you understand those needs, and it's amazing what small amounts of money can really have crazy impact.
Right.
Not as much in the US, particularly second, third world countries, but our church built an orphanage in Haiti. It cost $8,000 to build and $500 a month to run. This was a dozen years ago. So I don't know, double those numbers now, whatever, but it's still insane. Even $1,000 a month, if you can back an orphanage that's had 32 children living in it, like, that's the kind of thing I want to be doing. And you realize how powerful even small but carefully targeted donations can really have such an impact.
Yeah, totally. And then somewhere along the line, you became an investor yourself.
Yeah, that's right. So I always wanted to get into investing. So after selling in 2016, I took over 10X Venture Partners, which is an angel group. They were about a decade old. The people that founded it were kind of slowing down investing and moving into other things. So I ended up taking over, started a small venture fund about 5 years ago. So I've been investing out of that fund, the charitable foundation. I'm chairman of the board, chief investment officer. So we have a 5-person independent board, but I've been authorized to kind of manage the assets. So I invest in a couple of funds, in some like real estate and private equity stuff, and then a lot in early stage tech through next the angel group. And then we have the fund that 10X has, and then kind of my retirement. So I've been kind of investing out of all 3 pools of capital. So I've done 43 investments in tech companies at this point. The fund actually just had our first exit. It's our first check we wrote 5 years ago. We just had an 8.5x exit after 5 years. It was actually 7 years and 11 months that they contacted us like, hey, we think we're ready. And we were like, oh, wait a month and go ahead. Well, let's do it in a month. They're like, okay, sure. So we got QSBS for that. And that was a great first exit.
Nice.
So yeah, I love the tech investing side. That's kind of where I want to be long term. When I started SportsVisio, that was after the Senate run. I'd lost by 3% to the incumbent. And I was like, all right, what am I doing the rest of my life? Am I just hanging out on the couch? Am I playing basketball all day? Am I hanging out with my kids? Am I volunteering? And I was like, I've looked at raising a fund, but having grown up poor, having bootstrapped my company, didn't have a huge Rolodex of rich folks to put in. And my angel portfolio was pretty early at that point. I'd done maybe 10, 15, and they were mostly early. So I was like, I really need 5 years to let those kind of season and grow. And really, I would be a better investor if I'd actually raised money before and done a venture-backed startup. And people kind of pegged me as like a cyber one-trick pony, like, you're a cyber guy, just do hacking security things. It's like, yeah, no, I want to do other things. I love that. I'm good at that and very well connected there. But there's just so many other interesting challenges. I don't really like defensive cyber. The offensive world is super interesting. The defensive world is saturated with hype and marketing crap, and don't love that generally. So yeah, decided to start SportsVisio. So I was looking at other companies, and just nothing really jumped out at me. And I was playing basketball one day, and a buddy was like, I had 20 points and 10 assists and no turnovers. And guys on my team were all like, what game was he at? Like, I don't remember that. Exactly. Like, this was a men's league we're playing in, kind of a competitive league, but we didn't say anything. And then I get home that night. My wife, who doesn't normally ask, was like, how many points you have? I'm like, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 is kind of normally what I do. I care more about my shooting percentage. I try to get up, 5, 6, 7 shots, get 10, 12 points and have a good night. And then I saw an ad for this product called Pivo, which is a Bluetooth controlled motorized actuator. It sits there and it kind of pans back and forth. And, it's girls doing selfie videos or cooking or horseback riding. And in the ad, they showed a guy doing a basketball layup. I was like, that's kind of cool. So I go to the website and I'm like, yeah, it's trash if you play a basketball game because it just gets lost in the crowd. It doesn't really follow the ball. And I was like, I was at DARPA. Like, I know PhDs, people who run like the artificial intelligence lab at MIT or India National Labs, all these PhD genius type people. I'm like, I could probably find some smart people that could do this. So I called a couple of folks and they're like, oh yeah, you could absolutely do that. And so we went through and it was like, 3, 4 people for a year to get something out the door. And I was like, all right. Then I called customers. I was like, hey, would you buy this? Like, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. So I kind of sketched out the market and concluded it's about a $1.5 billion market for just basketball. And then you look at all the other sports, it's a $10 to $15 billion global market totally. And it's like, that's, it's not cyber, which is like 100 billion or a trillion or something crazy, but it's big enough to be a venture scale business, right? And the competition are big private equity companies like Huddle that do about $750 million a year, and they pay tens of thousands of humans overseas to watch video and type like the cat video into a video and do all the tagging. So I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I like as a VC. Like, you want to invest in those new disruptive technology companies that are disrupting legacy incumbents that have kind of done things the same way for a long time and are profitable. And
yeah, how long's Huddle been around? And the Huddle, for folks listening, it's HUDL. It's kind of like the leading sports recording company out there.
That's breakdown company. They probably have 70% of the high school market, decent penetration and collegiate and some overseas. And they're now like private equity backed. I think they're Bain Capital. So they've bought a bunch of different companies. They did actually buy a small AI company in volleyball. But yeah, so their synergy does like $250, $300 million a year. They dominate most of the high school manual breakdown market. So yeah, so I was like, all right, this seems like a good opportunity to kind of go after those guys and build something new. And honestly, people assume we're going after the high school market because that's kind of what you recognize for the stats and highlights. But we've found so much success in places like where you played, Brian, where it's just men's leagues and adult rec because we're using AI, we're like half the price or less of Huddle. So we're opening up brand new markets that can't afford Huddle and love the product. And they're like, oh, it's $1 something per player per game. Like, yeah, of course. Why do we not have this already? And they just sign up. And so we've really been kind of creating new markets as opposed to taking a lot from incumbents, which has been pretty fun to see. AU is the other big market we're going after because these tournaments, again, there's a lot of video there. There's people spending thousands of dollars for their kid to play a sport. And yet they're like, would you spend an extra $50 a year or whatever to get stats and highlights of all the games? They're like, of course we would. So some of them are literally paying hundreds of dollars to someone to manually go through all the video and like cut and splice. But SportsVisio, you don't have to do that. We already tag all the clips for you. So you can just kind of build whatever you want.
It strikes me as an investor as like kind of the right time. I think AI vision technology just got good enough to do this at scale very well, cost effectively at a price point that people would want to pay for.
That's right.
Versus you probably could have done this, 5 or 10 years ago, but it would have just cost a lot per game to process all that video.
Exactly. It's honestly still too expensive. Like we're doing the math and we're not making very much money per game because the GPUs and everything are so expensive, because we have to process all the AI ourselves. Like we can't use an LLM. We built all the code. But the good thing is we are profitable on a gross margin basis today, and it's just getting better. And every year.
Yeah. I mean, every year it's going to get
faster. Exactly. So I'm like, and the VCs are comfortable with it, but to your point, just 3 years ago, even the math would just not work.
Yeah. Market capture. Yeah. Right time. That's important. And what we were doing at Lifetime for eHoops is we'd have a couple guys on the sidelines, probably being paid, I guess. I don't know. But they were usually other basketball players who weren't playing the 6 o'clock game. They're playing the 7 o'clock game. So people would kind of shuffle in and out and try to keep the stats, and they'd get them wrong, right? A lot of human error.
Yep.
Like, no, I don't think I had 2 turnovers, like stuff like that. Yeah. So it's been really fun.
And so they say that, and you're like, nah, it doesn't sound right. One of the great things of the app is, this just happened to me actually the other night. I got marked a turnover on my Monday game. I'm like, I don't think I had a turnover. So I went and pulled up the video, and you can pull the video clip of the turnover. And it was my buddy who whipped the ball down the court in front of me, and I'm running full speed and I never touched the ball. So I put a little thing and I said, hey, I got tagged this turnover, but it's actually the number 6. That's why he slaps the ground and in frustration after he made that pass. And so it popped up a little thing. It was a little AI chatbot, and oh yeah, we've corrected it. So they do a review, but that's what you can do when you have video evidence, and you can't really do that when it's just a human kind of throwing down whatever they feel like.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing app actually, because you play your game on a Thursday night or whatever, and a day or two later you'll get all your stats, you get the AI summary, you'll have all your clips, everything that you did in the game basically. From
we're doing AI video summaries of the game now, so you can watch a 1.5 minute like game replay, kind of summarizing some key plays. And then we have a premium version where it's another $10 a game, where we'll do shot charts, heat maps, like AI coaching, breakdowns of like plus minus minutes. So you get like detailed player analysis, lineup analysis, and all that. And that's really moving more towards that competitive market.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it strikes me as like a innovator's dilemma, right? Like you come in and it's like, oh, that's just a toy. That's just like for like men's rec leagues. And then it just slowly gets better and better and better and better. And then over time, it's like, okay, this is just better than anything out there.
Exactly.
What I've been using is the Xbot Go, which kind of pans automatically. It does a pretty good job. It's not perfect and it's kind of buggy on Android. It'll get the footage, and then I think I did this free trial with you guys, but I don't think I'm ready to spend the like 25 a game that they quoted me for my 8th grader yet. Right. I think if I was trying to get all the parents signed up, if I could like if you get if you get the league signed up, then it's like really cheap. You amortize it over all of the entrance fees.
And that's why we post B2B. People are like, oh, you B2C? I'm like, nope, we don't go to customers. Like, what do you mean? They're like, I'm like, we do have a couple of parents, like a hedge fund guy who just pays for the whole team or whatever. But like, we really aren't going after the player because the economics are so bad. It's the same cost for us to process it for the league as it is for a single team, as it is for a single player. But the economics per person are so much different. The $1.20 a player is like for a league. Well, it's like $2.50 for a team, but then for a player, it might be $20-$25. Like, well, that's kind of dumb. If you got a 10-game season, you want to spend $250. But it's
also like a Tesla strategy, right? Like you kind of start with the Model S and then you kind of work your way down to the Model 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and then later in the future, you can do the PLG consumer motion where for some subscription per month, you can get this many games or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I'd go about a partnership. So just their team was out in California, met with our CTO, and great folks. They're very focused on that mass market and love the idea of integrating our technologies together. So we're talking to a number of the camera companies because we don't invest in we don't do hardware. It's part of why Sapphire Ventures invested in us. They love the fact that we were hardware agnostic. Veo is like a hardware company. Trace is a hardware company. You had Track 160.
Everybody has a phone.
And everybody has a phone, right? Like
put your phone on a tripod.
60 frames a second, you run them all day long, storage, high speed Wi-Fi. Like what else do you want? Why build custom hardware to do that?
Right. Yeah, what we do in our league, and I don't know if this is what you guys told us to do, but we'll set up 2 tripods with 2 phones.
Yeah, that's the model we proposed. It doesn't give you, and that's part of why we're talking Xbox Go, is we'd like to get to the point where we can digitally pan left to right and gives you a better viewing experience. Lifetime, Ultimate Hoops wanted a no-touch kind of solution. We're like, all right, this is easy. Just throw these things up, taken care of. Occasionally, you miss that full half-court experience, and watching the game isn't as cool, but it gets a lot of the plays really nicely.
It gets you 96% of the way there.
Yeah, exactly.
With 2 tripods.
And it was
even the Xbox Go messes up probably that percentage of time anyway. Like it's not perfect. It's pretty good. I also record my son's AAU volleyball, and it does okay. Like I have to put the tripod way up there.
So we're doing volleyball as well as our second sport for SportsVisio and AU. So we do most of the Southern California tournaments, and we're going to be taking over kind of the Midwest tournaments as well through some partners. So pretty excited. We've got a 3,000 game tournament coming up in a couple of weeks in Chicago. So
wow.
We're going to be pushing it there. And
what's your kind of like, have you guys talked to Baller TV? That's the one I see a lot on the West Coast.
Yeah. I talked to Aaron Hockey, their CEO, quite a bit. Super nice guy, but he is pretty aggressive at trying to. He was like, well, how about we just buy your tech for like 50 grand? I'm like, no, sorry, Aaron, can't do that. It's like, how about we give you like $1 a game? I was like, no, I can't do that. It's like, all right, well, I'm just going to build it myself. I have a guy with a PhD, like he'll just program this. I'm like, good luck.
Yeah. We've been doing this for years. Yeah.
Yeah, like at one point I had 4 PhDs. Like our CTO was a colleague of mine at DARPA. He ran a $200 million portfolio of AI programs. He's got 18 patents in AI from IBM Watson Research. Our AI lead was chief scientist for AI for BA Systems North America. He had a 180-person department working for him. He was like at Lincoln Laboratories. He was at the Air Force Academy. We had 2 MIT PhDs with 20 years of experience in computer vision, both from the defense industry working for us. We literally had 4, and then we've spent millions of dollars, and the AI is still not perfect. Like it's still developing.
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's not perfect. I know because I use it, but
I'm not worried about like your one dude coming in and like covering all the sports and like reinventing what we're doing. Like this is hard. 10 years from now, sure, maybe things will be so mature in the public domain and
you just ask ChatGPT to make a model.
Exactly. It might be able to do that.
Recreate SportsVisio, ChatGPT.
Exactly. That might be a thing, and I think it'll
5 or 10 years from now.
Yeah.
How were you able to assemble such a great team? For the founders listening out there.
From my background in defense and being at DARPA, like DARPA's an amazing place. Like it really is a special place in the world. I mean, the internet used to be called the ARPANET because DARPA kind of funded it. Stealth aircraft, self-driving cars really came out of, if you have some time.
The DARPA Challenge, yeah.
Urban Challenge, exactly. About all that. So that was happening. The Grand Challenge, Urban Challenge was happening when I was at DARPA. And now I drive a Tesla with full self-driving, and I can go to Manhattan without touching the steering wheel or the brakes.
You have the hardware 4, the newest hardware?
I don't. I have mine's
3
like 3 years old.
Dude, I do 2-year leases now, so that way I don't have to buy tires. This is my hack now. I do a 2-year lease, 30,000 mile lease. Because at about 35,000 miles, you got to replace the Tesla tires.
Yeah.
And so I stopped doing 3-year leases, so I do 2-year leases. So I got a Model 3 and a Model Y. I don't want to spend the money on a Model S or Model X, so I'm kind of cheap. But it's good enough, because I live 2 hours from San Francisco, and the new hardware 4 is so good. It feels like somebody's driving you. It's noted because I had the 2022 Model Y.
Okay.
And going to the 2025 just feels like not an order of magnitude, but definitely like 50% better. Just really smooth.
What is it about the new hardware you think?
I think there's better cameras, better sensors, but also a better neural net is what Elon said. But there's a new version of the software also coming that he said will feel like sentient, is what he said. So that's exciting. But
that's cool. Yeah, I'm very bullish on. Every time I tell people, it's amazing to me how many people have no idea that there are full self-driving cars on the road right now. Like
right now,
they just don't understand. They're like, really? Like, this is not a sci-fi thing, guys. It's happening right now. Like I can.
Well, and Waymo's rolling out. Tesla's rolling out self-driving taxis all over. I mean, five years from now, I'd predict like Uber rides are going to drop, 50 to 70%. People are going to be like, I don't know if I need a car. I can, go to the airport. It usually cost me $80. Now it costs me $25.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to watch all that develop. I wonder about my 10-year-old boys, and I'm like, are they ever going to have to learn to drive a car? Maybe.
We are right there. We have a son who's about to be 15 and a half this month. And so we're doing the driver's ed thing and doing all the, so he can drive. And I wasn't sure if he'd need to even get a license, And so, maybe my 13-year-old won't have to. Definitely my 9-year-old. But anyway, what were some of as you kind of started forming the team around SportsVisio and you started talking to these really smart PhDs, what were the technical breakthroughs that they were spotting that were like, yeah, we can definitely do this now?
I wouldn't say there were problems they spotted that made them say they can do it. It was more the problem seemed solvable. The biggest challenge we've had is occlusion. Where the problem with basketball and part of the reason the market is so open, like we're not the only company using AI and computer vision to create stats and highlights. We are the only one doing it in the mass market for basketball, but there's like 4 or 5 companies doing it in soccer. There's a company called SportsLogic doing it in hockey. There's a couple of companies in tennis. I think there's one in cricket. And the reason for that is because it's a very hard problem with basketball. You've got 5-on-5, plus you've got 2 or 3 refs. So you've got 12 or 13 people on the court running around, and then the ball is in the middle there. You're often at a lower, not a super high vantage point. And then you have players sometimes stepping on and off the court that are in the game or not in the game. You've got courts.
Players with the same numbers for some reason, because these are rec leagues, and I have number 15. This other guy's number 15.
Switch stuff. And then like AU tournaments, you've got court after court after court. You might have 4 courts all in view of the camera, and balls going and whistles going, and you're trying to determine which one is in the right spot. And it's a pretty complex problem. And then you've got, because we don't have our own hardware, we're not in fixed. There's a company called Second Spectrum that used to have the contract to do some stats and AI for the NBA, but there's like 32 arenas. That's it. They just calibrate those. They've got a bunch of cameras in known locations. They can precisely coordinate exactly where they're located and have precision geolocation data around angles and court lines. And our courts, we might have like 3 3-point lines and multiple, and you might have volleyball lines, and you're trying to figure out where the inbounds versus out of bounds is in these like random venues. So it's a much harder problem to solve for that mass market. We started off with more traditional computer vision technologies and approaches, and that was not working very well. So we said, look, we need to embrace more of the machine learning side of the world of saying, how can we train on more data, build up a neural network that's just pattern recognizing what's going on, and that had more success. But honestly, it's a combination. We've gone through different approaches and strategies to try to get where we are. Some stuff works and some doesn't. That's kind of what happens with technology research. Is you have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, and it kind of strikes me as a defensible moat over time, right? As you're tackling a very hard problem that's not easy to solve, and so as you continuously solve it, that creates a bit of a technical moat for you.
Totally. Yeah, that's why I've had a number of people say they either thought they were competing with us, or they're planning on competing, or they tried and gave up. But even the ones who say they are, I'm like, good luck. Like, you call me, but I'm not worried, honestly. Like, what worries me is more like someday an OpenAI model is going to drop the next version of Sora and things like that. Like, someday that's going to drop something that's actually interesting and useful. I mean, right now those models are trash, and you ask them to do stuff, they have no idea what's going on. They can't.
Yeah, someday you'll be able to drag the whole like hour-long footage from the game into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, just spit me out like all the stats." And
exactly, like
we're not there yet, but
probably someday. But it's far away. And I see the open source models, and there's some cool stuff happening, but those are tailored on like short clips in very specific NBA settings with great perfect angles and everything else. And for a 10-second clip, like, you can make a cool demo in a weekend, but you're building something that works in any case, in any environment, and on different camera angles, different jerseys, different, even hair, right? Like, from boys to girls, we're dealing with some girls teams. Well, the ponytails are like blocking the jersey number. Like, well, that makes identification harder. Those are the kinds of challenges you have to face in the real world that take a lot of training data.
I just had a robotic CEO on, and he said that every 9 is 10x harder, right? So like, you can get 90% accuracy pretty easily, but going to 99% is 10x harder. And then adding like, going to another 9 is 10x harder than that. So it gets an order of magnitude. I'm butchering what he said, but it's something like that.
That sounds right. I mean, it's definitely, you get massive diminishing returns at each level. We started at like 50, 60%, and 70, 80%, and then 80 something percent. And then you get to 90, and each one is like massive amount of effort to get to that next level. And then as we're entering the 90s now, like, okay, well, now we're not going to go to 99%. We're going to go to 95. And that's going to be a big jump. And then 97 is going to be a big jump. And 99 is a big jump. And so honestly,
and that's your technical moat there. And then that's also with this huge amount of back catalog, because I would imagine you're able to take all the back catalog of all these recorded games. And then are you guys also integrating a player in the loop? Not a human in the loop, but a player in the loop. So imagine I'm like, I haven't seen this in the app, but like, I'm looking at a clip and I'm like, that's wrong. Could I flag it in the app? Have you guys done that yet?
Yeah. Yep. That's what I just did the other day. Right.
Okay.
So I had that error with the improperly assigned turnover, and I flagged it, and they're like, yep, and it'll kind of learn. So one of the things we did for the first couple of years, we weren't learning from our own games. We were kind of annotating it. We had humans kind of correcting errors. One of the things we just did in the last year was like, all right, we need to make sure we've got now thousands and thousands of games in here. Let's make sure that our training corpus is growing based on all this labeled data.
Right. You got to now go back and double check all this data.
Yeah, and we can start to use that to grow the model. And that's
Right.
part of what gave us some of the jumps we've seen. And it also is great for just talking to investors. We can say, look, as we grow, as we land these new customers, yeah, it's revenue growth, but it's also strengthening our technical moat. As you said, like every customer is not just revenue and a new opportunity to get the word out, but it's also strengthening the system as we learn and evolve the models based on this new data. That's just makes it more powerful.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about the future. What are you excited about over the next few years?
For the company, you're saying? Yeah, I mean, for us, we're excited about thinking about our next sport's going to be. So we've got basketball and volleyball. We've got a bunch of sports that we've looked at. We have a baseball prototype we've developed. So we're trying to think about what to do with that. We're looking at things like everything from racket sports to soccer to less common sport, and different things. So we're trying to figure out what is that next thing going to be but we're also interested in expanding within basketball. So I really envision a future where we have robo-refs, and instead of a 3-ref system, you could have 1 ref with an iPad, maybe a 2 or 4 camera setup, and then it's calling the game for him. And then I think if we could build a system that 90% of the time he agreed with and maybe 10% he overruled, that's a production system that people would use. Because when you look at the economics, I've talked to a number of leagues and refs. They're paying like $50, $60, $70, $80, $100 a game to refs per person to ref a game.
Wow, that much.
It's crazy money because no one wants to do it. So the money has just gone up.
Well, yeah, you're just getting yelled at all.
They get yelled at
game by the players, by the parents. Yeah,
run around. You get yelled at. They're like, I don't want to do that. Like most people, it's just not worth it. And so they keep
bunch of crying kids
paying more, and there's threats of violence in some places.
Yeah.
People just don't want to do it.
I'll see you in the parking lot. I've actually heard it. I'm like,
exactly.
Whoa, gosh.
So people are getting, literally $60, $70, $80 a game. And then you got 3 refs in some at higher levels and 2 refs at every level.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, 2 refs that's $160 a game.
If you can cut that in half and then make it easy. And then it creates plausible deniability about calls where you're like, well, the AI thinks this. I have the iPad.
And here's a clip.
I have the instant replay. I agree with the call.
Yeah, so that's something I'm excited about for the future. AI Scoreboards is another one. So at almost every one of these venues, you're paying someone $15 to $20 an hour to sit there and press a button when the ball was in the hoop. That's crazy, especially at tournaments where they're doing hundreds of thousands of games. That's literally all off the tournament provider's bottom line.
Yeah.
So
you can imagine like an AI-enabled future where like every game is like an NBA game with instant replays, perfect reffing.
Yep.
Just perfect stats. Instant replays up on the big screen TV above the bench.
Yep. Yeah. So that's one thing. And then the other big thing we're excited about with the app is speed. So right now the AI takes like 16 hours to run in the cloud.
To run a single hour-long game? It takes 16 hours of processing. That's a lot of inference.
22. Actually, I think we was a 50% drop. We were at like 22, 23. So we might be like 13 or 14. But it's
that's significant.
Many hours. That's why the margins are not great
and these are expensive GPUs that cost $8 an hour or whatever.
Right. Well, we've got some that are not that bad. They're like 1 or 2. And we have negotiated volume, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
So the plan is to get that down to real time. So what can we do to optimize and improve and tweak the algorithm so we can get down to
or maybe even run on local devices, right? So you license the software and it runs on my Galaxy S28 because it has enough GPU horsepower.
Exactly. That's the dream. Yeah. Eventually we'll get there. It's going to be a while till your phone is that smart.
I'll say this, like if it was $5 a game and I could run it on my RTX 4090 at home, I'd do that.
Yeah. Even just doing the ball tracking that we did with that Pivo camera, the phones were like getting super hot just from like tracking the camera and just trying to deconflict all the players. But when you add in like jersey number tracking and player tracking and action detection with 2D homography and like player position on the court and all the other things that go into it, gets very computationally complex to do it accurately. To get something that's a crude estimate, it's not terrible, but you want 50% accuracy. Like, you can do a lot. As soon as you want to get to like 85, 90, 95, you're like, okay, that, like you said, 10 times the compute cost. So, but eventually I think we'll get there. Some of that is we can just continue to improve the algorithms. Once we get super accurate, then we want to work on how fast can we make it, and can we triage and build a version. Maybe you don't get full stats.
It's like speed, cost, and accuracy is the triangle there, right?
You got it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm excited about that because that actually opens up markets like the NBA. So we really are targeting the mass market right now.
Right.
But
yeah, just kind of keep moving up from, rec leagues to AAU to high school to college, and NBA comes knocking. They're like, hey, I've seen this is like 99
well,
point
and
whatever
it'll be a
percent.
new product. So we're in colleges and high schools and AU and all that today, but for the core product. But what we would do for the NBA is like a fan engagement tool, because I'm confident, you're not going to go to your niece's middle school basketball game and be getting real-time highlight clips of Sally that you're sending to grandma, like, oh, Sally had a great shot, and grab those from the sideline and send them over, and then go to your local NBA game, go to a Warriors game, or go to whoever, and then watch them and not be able to do the same thing. Like, that's just not going to be a universe, I think, that lasts for very long. So the trick is, how do we get it from hours of processing down to seconds, and where you can process a game in practically real time. And then that opens up this whole opportunity for fan engagement, for, like you said, in-venue replays, for ref analysis and things like that. And that's when stuff gets really exciting.
That's really cool. Well, let's wrap it up with some rapid fire.
Sounds good.
So you've lived at the intersection of hacking, defense, startups, and sports. What thread ties all this together?
I think innovation, disruption, thinking about, I have ADHD, and so I'm good at seeing things as they aren't and saying, well, what else?
Are you like diagnosed, or?
Yeah.
Or you just think you had, like, you're pretty sure you had it?
Diagnosed. I didn't know I had it my whole life, but my son was getting tested in high school, and I took the test for him. And does Caleb have this? Yes. Haha, that's funny. I do too. 17 questions later, I was like, so apparently he has it. Apparently I do too. And I wasn't going to do anything about it or get diagnosed officially. And I was telling someone that, my wife's like, well, why not? Why not try something? I was like, oh, I mean, I guess I could. So I went to a doctor and did the questionnaire again, and he gave me the diagnosis. Like, yep, pretty common. You have it.
Did you take any medication for it, or?
Yeah, I tried Adderall, and it was amazing. I mean, it's kind of amazing.
Adderall is amazing.
I was like, I have all these stacks of paper at my desk, and I just, like, one afternoon, I was like, all right, I'm going to try it. I plowed through all the paperwork. I filed everything properly. I was like, wow, like the noise just kind of quieted, everything stilled. And I only took it the one time.
I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. I should take this test. So maybe you can send it to me after the recording. But I think it makes me like a good investor, because in pre-seed, I'm like constantly surfing the edge of chaos all over the place.
Yeah.
It's like squirrels. Now startups.
Right.
So it kind of suits.
Kind of why I want to be out of the running a startup and in the investing side, is I love the diversity and the challenges of working with, early stage founders. So anyway, all of that.
How do you balance everything? I mean, because you have the foundation, it sounds like you're still kind of deploying capital. You're running a startup. How are you balancing all this all at once?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is there's a lot of synergy, like raising money for the company, you're going to founder events and networking events. So I'm talking to founders about my startup, and then I'll ask them about their startup. And sometimes, I run a group and we should talk about investing. Or I'm talking to other investors. I may talk about, I just ran an event last night in Boston at a brewery with 30 investors from the area, and didn't talk about my company at all, but like building a network of investors, like obviously strengthening that is helpful when you're raising money, and hearing what they hear in the market. Like, there's a lot of synergy between those worlds. I have 3 browsers open. I have Firefox, my personal browser. I have Chrome set up for my investing stuff. And I have a different Chrome persona for SportsVisio. So I kind of switch tabs and I'm switching contexts. I spend 40, 45 hours a week, probably on the startup, sometimes more when I'm traveling. And
you're not doing 996? I mean, are you even a founder? Sometimes
I'm up till like 1 a.m. catching up on things, but I'm trying to be a good husband.
I tell my founders to not do that. Like, work at a sustainable amount. Like, that's I know, right. Like at about 60 hours is where I start burning out. So I try to keep it around 55 hours a week on Team Ignite. Like, that's where I said just start burning out. It's just not good for anybody.
Right. Yeah. You want to have enough reserve that you can sprint for things when you need it. So like, I don't stay up till 1 or 2 a.m. often, but if I'm behind and I was out for that whole day and I got back late and I was like, you know what, I have critical stuff that's due. We have this big proposal for SportsVisio that's due tomorrow. And they're like, hey, can you give a review? I'm like, I'm going to do that when I get home at 10:45. And so I worked on that for a couple hours, and then I had some other big stuff I had to do. So I think, you mix, I don't know that I'm great at it, but I'm very competitive and like have a high fear of failure, which I think has helped temper and manage my age.
That's the chip on the shoulder from our backgrounds,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
just also a competitive person. Like I want to win every game. If I play ping pong, a video game, a board game, I'm like,
Yeah.
I just
I won't
love
even play board games with my kids because I'm too competitive. Like
Yeah,
I take it too personally.
right. Exactly.
Like you don't want to see dad on the chessboard. All right.
That's how
Just
I've
keep me off the
compensated for
chessboard.
that. My son is more easygoing than I am, and he really struggled in high school because he is just more laissez-faire. He's like, "Oh, it's okay, Dad. I study for like 20 minutes." And whereas a couple of my daughters got my personality of like, one of them's on the National Honor Society. She's not gifted intellectually, but she is such a hard worker because she has this incredible high fear of failure. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. So like, I'm going to study for like 5 hours, and she gets great grades every time because that pushes her. So
I told my son he's in 8th grade and he's starting to get a couple B's. Maybe someday he'll listen to this podcast and be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." And I'm like, "Dude, you're like in like public school in 8th grade. You should be getting straight A's. There's no excuse. Like I expect straight A's from you. You know." Speaking of failure, what's a failure or misstep you learned from the most?
It's a good question. I don't know. There's bigger ones and then ones I've learned from the most. I don't know if they're always the same, but I can say that what I'm going through right now is I am now the majority owner of an indoor softball facility in New Hampshire, 30,000 building. A friend of mine was going to be owning a third, and his daughters had played competitive softball for a program. And the guy who ran the program wanted to start this building. So my friend Sam was going to come in for 1/3, and the guy was going to own 2/3 with his wife. And then Sam's like, "Hey, you want to split my 1/3 with me? We're partners on a bunch of deals." He's like, "I'm going to mentor him on the finance business side because he's not a sharp operator, but softball, he's got a good network and all the economics look good. I penciled it out. Everything was great." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And it's been a disaster. Like it's losing 50 to 100 grand a year. My friend Sam sold his shares out to another dude who now is like so upset and disgruntled. He just like walked away from his portion. We had to keep putting money in. So now I own 52% of it. The main guy and his wife own 48%. And the bank might be taking it over because it's behind on payments. So it's just taught me a whole bunch of things. One is not to personally guarantee big investments. Two, if you do personally guarantee something like your house, make sure you are the guy operating it and it's your baby and not you're trusting someone else to manage this thing that you have significant liability for. Three, not to invest in stuff you don't know well, which is always a good reminder as an investor. Four, not to go in trusting other people's diligence and other people's assessment of a market or a business, which again, I've been burned in the investing world doing that. But I trust my friend Sam so much. And I was like, "All right, you think it's good? I'm riding passive guy coming in behind you guys. Like, what's the big deal?" But now it's sucking up my time. And I had to go meet with the bank and I had to talk to a lawyer this week. And like, I don't want to be doing this. It's not what I want to be spending my time on. I just thought it'd be a fun kind of side passive investment. So taught a whole bunch of lessons there, including not to think too highly of yourself. And even if I have that great venture exits and those other things, you're like, "Oh, but you could also still suck at investing." And as soon as you get outside what you know and trust other people's diligence and that it's all going to work out, like you could still have a big problem and have something blow up in your face.
Small businesses are tough as well. I mean, that's a small
And that
business.
industry particularly is hard. It's just like,
brick and mortar, small business. Yeah.
or
Speaking of mistakes, as an investor, what's a mistake that you often see founders make?
One, I was just talking to a friend about that yesterday. I think the biggest one I see in the sports tech world, I very rarely invest in sports tech companies because the big problem in sports tech founders is they either go after the upper end of the market and they've got a product for pro teams and they've got great CAC to LTV, they've got a cool product, their CAC might be $8,000 and they've got an $80,000 LTV, 20 grand a year and churn after 4 years or whatever. But the TAM is like $2 million. And they're like, "Well, when we expand to college, it'll go to 5. Like, no one cares. It's not a venture scale business. Like, there's like 30 teams that do what you do, and you've got 3 of them already. And like, even if you took the universe of all of them, it's just not a venture business. Like, you don't understand. You're raising this thing at like a $5 or $10 million valuation, but your business is never going to be worth more than 20. So
And that's generous, right? That's at a
yeah, exactly.
X or 20x multiple or whatever.
And then, so the other side of the market, they go after the mass market. They're like, "Oh, I built an app. It's a pose estimator. It'll analyze your golf swing and tell you how you're doing it wrong or your batting swing. And you put it on your phone and it's going to be $20 a month." And they show this curve that goes to infinity on their revenue
How many
chart.
golfers in the world? And like,
Yeah,
I got to get 1% of those golfers. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, but they don't understand CAC to LTV, right? So their CAC is like $74. and their LTV is 60. And you really, because these people use it for 2-3 months and then they churn, and they don't understand that you're literally setting money on fire. And I've tried to explain that you could build any business and make money. Every single business, any business on the planet can bring in revenue. The question is it profitable revenue or not? Because I could build a business selling poop on a stick. My CAC might be $3,000. My LTV might be 1. But hey, I could, if you throw enough money at it, I can
CAC.
build that revenue curve. But is that a business that anyone wants to be part of, that what they want to invest in? Like, I would argue no. And they don't understand like unit economics and go-to-market strategy and how CAC to LTV and why that stuff matters.
That's, yeah, well said. So Siege was customer funded. You bootstrapped it. SportsVisio is VC backed. If you had to start from scratch today, which route would you take?
You know, I'm a big fan of the answer to most complicated questions is it depends. And I would certainly say that's true here. When I was advising someone or myself, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? Is the goal, people think the VC path is like where it's at. You need to build a VC business. Other people are like, no, VC is horrible. You only need to do this. Like, all those people are wrong. It's very dependent on your situation, what product, what technology, what you're trying to accomplish, how fast you need to get there, what your desired outcome is. Are you trying to build a lifestyle business? Do you want a generational business you pass on to your kids? Are you just trying to do this and hit it as hard as you can and dominate a market in 5 years? Are you building something where you're competing with, very large incumbents and you need some rapid competitive edge with some insight you have? Or are you building something that's more consulting oriented and never going to be VC investable? Like, all of those things change the answer. For me, my longer term goal is to just go into investing full time and empower other investors. So I'll spend a lot more time focusing on VC backed companies, but I'll also help friends that are doing, bootstrap businesses. And honestly, I think the default answer for most founders should be bootstrap. It's always a better option. You have
at least until the first like 100 or 200K.
Totally. As far as you can go, like bootstrapping is a great option. It allows you to have, you can get bought for $5 million and have that be life-altering money. Whereas most VC-backed companies, you start with a $5 million valuation or a $3 million valuation, and you would never sell for 5 because it's too little and no one gets a return. So, but if you bootstrap it, you get a $5 million exit 3 years later. Like that was a pretty good return.
Pretty good money. Yeah.
People don't realize that. So I always try to push people to think about bootstrapping, build a good business, think about your revenue, think about your customers, CAC to LTV. All that stuff is very clear when you're building it. It can get murky when you're building a VC business. And it's a different game. And I think way too many people try to play it unsuccessfully.
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation. I could talk to you for another hour. Thanks a lot for coming on. I'll let you go because I know it's late on the East Coast.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Brian. And I enjoyed the questions and hope to connect again in the future.
Likewise.